The morning in New York was cold and foggy, with a wind whispering secrets through the streets. Claire Bennett, known by only a few as the heiress to one of the world's largest fortunes, hurried along the sidewalks, wrapped in a wool coat that seemed to swallow her slender figure. To everyone else, she was just an ordinary woman, dedicated to volunteer work at a local NGO and married to the man she believed to be the love of her life, Ethan Carter. Claire had meticulously planned her life. From a very young age, she understood the burden that came with her wealth, the relentless interest people showed in her just because of her last name. Tired of being reduced to the symbol of an endless bank account, she made a radical decision to live a normal life under a fictitious identity. That's how she met Ethan, a charismatic and idealistic bartender with dreams that far exceeded the opportunities life seemed to offer him. They got married in a simple ceremony, far from the cameras and the curiosity of tabloids. Claire held a crucial secret, but to Ethan it didn't matter. They shared something deeper, ambition. Over time she began silently helping him, steering strategic investments and connections toward the businesses he dared to launch, until Ethan became the CEO of one of the country's most promising tech companies. But things began to change when Claire revealed she was pregnant. The distance between them wasn't sudden, it grew gradually. Missed calls, endless meetings, increasingly vague excuses. Then one day he simply vanished. No word, no note, just silence. Devastated, Claire tried to move on. Even with a broken heart, she found the strength to focus on her pregnancy. Now in her 5th month, the loneliness was weighing on her more than ever. Despite this, Claire was determined to stay strong for her child. That morning, she decided to go to the hospital for a routine checkup. The clinic was renowned, discreet, and she trusted her visit would remain anonymous. As she entered the waiting room, an odd shiver ran through her. The air felt heavier, the sounds muffled. Then she saw him. Ethan was there just a few feet away, laughing and talking with a blonde woman of refined appearance. Looking closer, Claire felt the ground vanish beneath her feet. Her belly was unmistakable. The woman was pregnant. Claire tried to look away but couldn't. The memory of a photo she had once seen in Ethan's files came rushing back like a punch to the stomach. It was her, Olivia, the ex-girlfriend who had left him when he was at his lowest. She clung to his arm intimately, as if they were a happy couple. Instinctively, Claire hid behind a column. Her racing heart echoed in her ears. What was Ethan doing there? Why was he with Olivia? And most importantly, what did that pregnancy mean? Feeling the urge to run, Claire took a deep breath and forced herself to think clearly. She knew she needed to find out the truth, but more than that, she needed to protect her baby and perhaps her own sanity. As she watched the scene unfold from a distance, one question echoed in Claire's mind. Was Ethan really the man she thought she knew? Or had it all been an illusion, a cruel game in which she was just another pawn? Claire left the clinic as a shadow of herself. The noisy streets of Manhattan felt distant, the sounds muffled by the storm of emotions roaring inside her. The words she had overheard before leaving echoed in her mind like an incessant siren. "I'm so happy everything worked out for us, Ethan. After all these years apart, who would have thought we'd find each other again like this?" Olivia had caressed his face lovingly as she spoke those words, and Ethan had smiled. A smile Claire hadn't seen in months, and now she understood why. Back at the small apartment she had rented after Ethan disappeared, Claire closed the door behind her and slid to the floor. The tears came without warning, hot and heavy, as she tried to piece together the shards of this painful puzzle. Had he left her to go back to Olivia? Was he truly in love with another woman? Or was it something even more complicated and terrible? In the days that followed, Claire decided to take action. She had learned over the course of her life that hiding was never the solution, no matter how tempting it seemed. The best way to face pain was to understand it. She decided to hire a private investigator, someone she trusted who had worked for her family in the past. His name was Marcus Rowe, a discreet and efficient detective who never asked unnecessary questions. "I need information on Ethan Carter," she said, keeping her tone firm. "I want to know where he's been these past few months, who he's been meeting with, and what his plans are." Marcus furrowed his brow. "Are you sure about this, Claire? Sometimes digging too deep uncovers things we'd rather not know." "I'd rather deal with the truth than live in ignorance," she replied without hesitation. In the days that followed, Marcus began sending her reports. Ethan was living in a luxurious loft in Tribeca, a choice that felt cruelly ironic to Claire. knowing he could never have afforded such a place before his meteoric rise. But the worst part was discovering that Olivia was living there with him. At the same time, Claire tried to maintain her routine. She kept her medical appointments, prepared the baby's room, and made every effort to keep the weight of betrayal from affecting her pregnancy. But every new detail Marcus uncovered felt like a dagger to her heart. Ethan's trips to other states for meetings, the events he attended with Olivia by his side, everything pointed to him starting a new life without even looking back. And then, one piece of information caught her attention. Ethan's company appeared to be facing a quiet crisis. Despite maintaining an air of success, Marcus discovered that the company's capital was nearly depleted. Major investors were pulling out, and rumors of bankruptcy were circulating among executives. Claire knew Ethan would never admit it, but the reality seemed unavoidable. Then Marcus delivered the most devastating revelation. "I've uncovered something else," he said during a phone call. "Olivia is 6 months pregnant." The silence on the other end of the line was crushing. Claire felt the air leave her lungs. "And there's more," Marcus continued cautiously. "I'm not sure how to say this, but the timeline matches. It matches the period when Ethan was still with you." The line went dead for a moment. Claire gripped the edge of the table to steady herself. This was the ultimate betrayal. While she had been building a future alone for the child she carried, Ethan had been across town starting another family. But something felt off. No matter how much Marcus described Ethan as seemingly happy, Claire sensed there was more to the story. She knew Ethan better than anyone. He could be ambitious, stubborn, even cold at times, but he wasn't a born liar. He had weaknesses, and Claire needed to find them. A week later, Claire decided to confront him. She waited until Marcus confirmed that Ethan would be attending a gala at an elegant penthouse on the Upper East Side. She dressed in a simple but impeccable black dress, the kind of outfit that commanded attention. This wasn't about causing a scene, she knew that. She just needed him to see her, to remember who she really was. When she arrived at the event, she spotted Ethan at the center of the room, surrounded by businessmen and investors, with Olivia by his side. She walked toward him slowly, each step echoing in her mind like a ticking clock ready to explode, and then finally their eyes met. Ethan's smile vanished instantly. The air around them seemed to solidify, trapping him in place. He took a step forward, but before he could speak, Claire threw her words at him like a blade. "We need to talk. Now." Olivia glanced from Ethan to Claire, confused, but he didn't reply. He simply followed Claire to a quieter corner of the room. Once they were alone, she confronted him with all the pain she had been holding back. "I saw you at the hospital. I saw you with Olivia. I need to know, did you leave because of this? Because you wanted to start over with her and pretend I never existed?" Her words were sharp, but her eyes were wet with unshed tears. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, as if bracing himself. When he opened them, Claire saw a mix of guilt and desperation. "It's not what you think, Claire. I didn't have a choice." The words dropped like a bomb, leaving Claire more confused than ever. The silence between them was almost tangible, each second stretching into an eternity. Claire stared at Ethan, her eyes locked on his, waiting for an explanation that might make sense of it all. But his words, "I didn't have a choice," felt as hollow as they were cruel. No choice. After everything they had been through together? "Don't try to justify the unjustifiable, Ethan," Claire snapped, crossing her arms. "You simply walked away, and now here you are, with her, with Olivia. She's pregnant and so am I, so please tell me, what exactly wasn't a choice?" Ethan looked away, seemingly wrestling with a wave of emotions he was determined not to show. Finally he sighed, running his hands through his hair, his face weighed down by guilt that looked genuine but was far from enough. "I did it to protect you, Claire," he said softly, "to protect you and our child." Claire blinked, incredulous. A bitter laugh escaped her lips before she could stop it. "Protect me? Is that really what you're saying?" She took a step forward, her voice simmering with anger. "You think abandoning your pregnant wife and running into the arms of your ex is some kind of protection?" Ethan finally raised his eyes to meet hers. There was something there, fear, desperation, and perhaps a flicker of love. He looked as if he was about to say something important, but hesitated, the words seemingly too heavy to voice. "Olivia showed up with something against me," he confessed at last. "Something that could destroy everything I've built. I couldn't let her go through with it. She threatened to expose information that wouldn't just ruin my career, It could put your life in danger, too. Claire stood frozen, trying to process what he had just said. At first, it sounded like another weak excuse, but there was something in his tone, in the tension in his body, that made it feel real. "What kind of information?" she asked, narrowing her eyes. "And why would it put my life at risk?" Ethan glanced around, making sure no one was listening, then stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Olivia knows your true identity, Claire. She found out who you really are, where your wealth comes from. She threatened to leak it to the media, and to people who wouldn't hesitate to use that information against you, against us." A chill ran down Claire's spine. For years she had hidden her true identity, living as an ordinary woman, far from the scrutiny of the elite. It was a deeply rooted fear that someone would weaponize her fortune and influence against her. But even so, this didn't justify Ethan's actions. "And you thought the solution was to abandon me, to leave me alone at a time like this?" she asked, her voice breaking. "If you had told me, we could have figured this out together." Ethan looked as though he wanted to respond, but a voice cut through the moment like a knife. "Is everything all right here?" It was Olivia, her prominent baby bump visible beneath her sleek dress, and her fake smile radiating superiority. She looked at Claire as if she were an unwelcome intruder, someone out of place. Claire stepped back, regaining her composure. She wasn't about to give Olivia the satisfaction of seeing her vulnerable. "Yes, everything's fine," Claire replied coldly. "We were just sorting out a few loose ends." Olivia glanced at Ethan with a possessive air before turning her attention back to Claire. "It's best not to stress yourself too much, Claire. After all, pregnancy can be so delicate. You wouldn't want to cause any issues for your baby, would you?" Her words were a calculated jab, but Claire didn't take the bait. Instead, she smiled. "Thanks for your concern, Olivia. But don't worry about me. I know how to take care of myself." She turned to Ethan one last time before walking away. "This isn't over. I want answers, and you're going to give them to me." Back at her apartment, Claire felt torn between anger and heartbreak. Ethan claimed his actions had been to protect her, but how could she trust that after everything? And why did Olivia have so much power over him? The pieces still didn't fit. Claire picked up her phone and called Marcus. "I need you to dig deeper into Olivia," she said firmly. "I want to know everything about her, and fast." "I'm already on it, Claire," Marcus replied, "and I think you'll want to hear what I've uncovered." Claire held her breath, bracing for something that might finally explain it all. "Olivia isn't just blackmailing Ethan," Marcus revealed. "She's working with someone else, someone very powerful, who seems to have a personal interest in you." "In me?" Claire asked, stunned. "Yes. I'm still piecing the connections together, but from what I've found, this goes far beyond a love triangle or simple blackmail. This person has a bigger motive for wanting to destroy both of you, and honestly, I think you need to prepare for the worst." Claire hung up the phone, a sinking feeling settling in her chest. Whatever was happening, it was far more dangerous and complex than she had imagined. Something much larger was unfolding behind the scenes, and she knew she would have to confront the shadows of her past, the ones she had fought so hard to leave behind. The only thing Claire knew for certain was that she would fight, for herself, for the child she carried, no matter the cost. Claire took a deep breath as she walked through the corridors of the corporate building where Ethan worked. The decision to confront him there hadn't been easy, but she knew she couldn't wait any longer. With each passing day, the information Marcus uncovered made everything darker. Olivia wasn't acting alone. There was someone powerful orchestrating all of this, and Claire needed to find out who and why. When she reached the reception desk, the secretary tried to stop her, but Claire shot her a firm look that needed no explanation. There was no time for pleasantries. She opened the door to Ethan's office without announcing her presence. "We need to talk, now." Ethan, who was on the phone, looked visibly startled but gestured for her to come in. After ending the call, he crossed his arms, the tension and exhaustion clear on his face. "Claire, I told you I'm trying to handle this." "Handle it?" She cut him off, her anger overflowing. "You call running away and lying handling it. I need the truth, Ethan, all of it. No more excuses." Ethan hesitated for a moment, but the determined look in Claire's eyes was impossible to ignore. He sighed deeply before speaking. "Olivia didn't just find out about your identity, Claire. She's working with someone named Victor Hastings." The name hit Claire like a thunderclap. Victor Hastings was a former associate of the Bennett family, a man known for his ruthless ambition and calculated revenge. He had been ousted from the business years ago after a financial scandal nearly destroyed the family's reputation. Claire remembered the stories vaguely, but never imagined he would return to haunt her. He wants revenge on your family, Claire, and Olivia is just a pawn in his game. She's manipulating me to get to you, Ethan continued. He knew that if she threatened me, I'd do whatever it took to protect you. Claire felt the ground shift beneath her. So that was it. This wasn't just a personal drama. It was something far bigger and far more dangerous. "And why didn't you tell me this sooner?" she asked, her voice heavy with disappointment. "Because he threatened you, Claire," Ethan said, his voice rising in frustration. "He said that if I told you the truth, you'd become a direct target. I couldn't take that risk. Olivia pretended to be pregnant to trap me, to ensure I'd do what they wanted. But now I see that pushing you away only gave them more power." Claire took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts. The anger she felt was beginning to transform into determination. Victor Hastings might have been powerful, but she wasn't some defenseless victim. For years, Claire had fought to build a life outside the control of her family, and she wasn't about to let anyone destroy it now. "This ends here, Ethan," she said firmly. "We're going to face Victor together. And as for Olivia, I'm sure Marcus can find something to expose her." Ethan nodded, though fear still lingered in his eyes. "Are you sure? Victor doesn't play fair, Claire. He'll go to any lengths." "I don't have a choice," she replied. "I'm done hiding. And my child deserves to be born into a world where his mother isn't controlled by blackmailers." In the weeks that followed, Claire and Ethan worked with Marcus to devise a plan. Marcus discovered that Victor was running an illegal financial scheme, pressuring smaller companies into compliance. One of those targets was Ethan's own company. The plan was simple but risky: expose Victor before he could inflict more damage. The trickiest part, however, involved Olivia. Marcus managed to gather evidence proving that her pregnancy was a complete fabrication, a carefully orchestrated ploy to manipulate Ethan. Armed with this information, Claire decided to confront her. "You've lost Olivia," Claire said, facing her across a table at a discreet cafe where they had agreed to meet. "I know everything. I know you're working with Victor. I know your pregnancy is a lie, and I know you're nothing more than a pawn in his plans." Olivia tried to maintain her composure, but the flush in her cheeks betrayed her nerves. "You think you can just threaten me?" Olivia retorted with a forced laugh. "Victor will never let you walk away from this unscathed." Claire smiled, but there was no kindness in her expression. "It's too late for that. The evidence is already in the hands of people you and Victor can't control. And as for you, Olivia, you should start worrying about yourself. Victor won't be able to protect you when this all falls apart." Olivia said nothing, her silence a sign that she knew the game was over. The final blow came when Marcus exposed Victor's fraudulent schemes at an investors' conference. Documents and evidence were handed over to the authorities, and the story made headlines the next day. Victor was arrested, and Olivia, left without allies or resources, vanished from the public eye. As for Ethan and Claire, the ordeal they had faced together brought them closer in ways they hadn't expected. There were still wounds to heal, but the love they shared, and the future they envisioned for their child, gave them a chance to start over. At Claire's final medical appointment before the baby's birth, Ethan reached out and took her hand. It was a simple gesture, but one full of promises. They had weathered storms together, and now they were ready to rebuild their lives with honesty as their foundation. "Our child is going to be proud of the mother he has," Ethan said with a smile. Claire looked at him, her eyes shining. "And he's going to have a father who's learned the value of the truth." As they laughed together, for the first time in what felt like forever, Claire knew that the future was finally in her hands. And this time, nothing would take it away from her.